quiet night shift turned into a race against time when Officer Luke Henson answered a routine call. What started as a distressed child's cry would soon unravel a chilling secret, a web of danger, and a promise that could cost him everything. The boy's plea was simple: save them. But little did Luke know, the fight for one family's safety would lead him into the heart of a criminal network and force him to face a truth that would change everything. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. Officer Luke Henson drove through the quiet streets of Cedarville, the soft hum of his cruiser blending with the sound of the occasional rustling trees. It was nearing midnight, and the night shift was often uneventful. He had grown accustomed to the monotony, the occasional speeding ticket, noise complaints from rowdy neighbors, and the usual small-town disturbances. There was nothing that really challenged him anymore. As the car's headlights illuminated the empty streets, Luke's mind wandered to his family. His daughter, Lily, would be waiting for him at home, asleep by now. His wife, Emily, would be reading her book on the couch. The routine was predictable, but it gave him comfort. Luke was used to the calm and he cherished it. Tonight felt no different. Then, without warning, the radio crackled to life, piercing the calm of the night. Unit 12, we've got a report of a distressed child near Parkview. Caller reports a boy approximately 10 years old appears shaken and unaccompanied. Copy that, I'm 5 minutes out. Luke responded, his voice steady, though the unexpected nature of the call caught his attention. A child in distress at this time of night wasn't something he encountered often. He checked his rearview mirror. The silence in the cruiser almost oppressive. What was a child doing out here alone, especially at this hour? As he neared Parkview, Luke's mind raced. Was it a prank, a runaway, or something worse? He could feel his instincts kicking in. The call had been brief, but the description of the child had him on edge. No child should ever be alone at this time of night, especially not in a park like this one. When he arrived, he saw nothing but empty streets. The park loomed ahead, dark and quiet. Luke pulled into the parking lot and parked the cruiser near the bench by the entrance. He could see a figure sitting there, small and still. His heart sank when he recognized the boy. The child, no older than 10, sat hunched on the bench beneath the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. He was wearing a torn t-shirt, stained dark, with something Luke couldn't yet identify. His eyes were wide, and as Luke approached, the boy slowly turned his head, his face streaked with tears. "Hey, buddy," Luke called out, keeping his voice calm. "Are you okay?" The boy didn't respond right away. His hands trembled as he clutched the hem of his shirt, his eyes darting around nervously. Luke crouched down to the boy's level, trying to make himself appear less intimidating. The last thing he wanted was to make the child more scared than he already was. "It's okay," Luke said gently. "I'm Officer Henson. What's your name?" The boy didn't answer right away. He looked up at Luke, his small body trembling from more than just the chill of the night air. After a long silence, he whispered, "Tommy." Luke's heart sank. A child named Tommy, alone in the dark? There was something deeply unsettling about the scene. He could see blood, though not much, staining the boy's shirt. It wasn't fresh, but it was there, dried and smudged, as if something terrible had happened before the boy came here. "Are you hurt, Tommy?" Luke asked, his voice softening with concern. Tommy looked down at his hands, still clutching the hem of his shirt. His lips trembled as he spoke. "They're gone." "Who's gone?" Luke asked, leaning in closer, trying to keep his voice calm and reassuring. "My mom, my sister." Tommy's voice cracked, and he struggled to hold back more tears. "They took them." Luke's heart dropped. An abduction? At this hour? He could feel the urgency creeping in. "Who took them, Tommy? Do you know who they were?" Tommy shook his head quickly, his breath shallow and rapid, as if he were struggling to hold himself together. "They wore masks. They grabbed them, and I ran." Luke frowned, his mind racing. This wasn't just some runaway child. Tommy's fear was palpable. Something terrible had happened, and this child was the only witness, the only hope they had of finding out who was responsible. Luke stood up slowly, keeping his eyes on the boy. He needed to remain calm. "Tommy, what's on your shirt?" he asked gently, trying not to scare him further. The boy hesitated, looking down at the fabric. His small hand reached up and lifted the hem of the shirt just slightly, revealing the words written in blood, smeared across the front. "Help us," the words read, barely legible through the stains. Luke's stomach tightened. The words were haunting, written in blood, perhaps by Tommy's mother, as if she had known what would happen and tried to leave some kind of message for whoever found him. "Did your mom write this?" Luke asked, kneeling down beside him again. Tommy nodded slowly, fresh tears rolling down his face. "She told me to run," he whispered. "She told me to find help." Luke's heart broke for the child. This was no ordinary case. This wasn't a lost child or a simple misunderstanding. This was something far darker. "You're safe now, Tommy," Luke said, trying to reassure him. "We're going to find your mom and sister, but I need you to come with me to the station. Can you do that?" Tommy hesitated, his eyes still wide with fear. "Promise you'll save them," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Luke placed a hand on the boy's shoulder, looking him straight in the eyes. "I promise, Tommy. I won't let anything happen to them." As Luke called for backup and prepared to take the boy to the station, the weight of the situation settled in. Time was running out. Whoever had taken Tommy's family was still out there, and every second counted. This was no longer just another night shift. This was the beginning of a race against time. With Tommy by his side, Luke knew one thing for sure. He wasn't going to stop until he found out who was behind this, and brought them to justice. After taking Tommy to the station, Officer Luke Henson's mind raced as he tried to piece together the information the boy had shared. The small, terrified child with his blood-stained shirt and the haunting words, "Help us," written across it, had shaken Luke to his core. As he escorted Tommy into the small room, the officer couldn't shake the feeling that this case was much bigger than he had originally imagined. "You're safe now, buddy," Luke said as he sat down across from Tommy, trying to calm him. The boy sat quietly, clutching a water bottle, his eyes still wide with fear. Despite being in a secure place, he didn't look any less scared. Luke took a deep breath and left the room to meet with Detective Carla Green, who had arrived shortly. Carla Green was a seasoned detective known for her sharp mind and no-nonsense approach to abduction cases. When Luke explained the situation to her, she immediately jumped into action. "This isn't just a random abduction," Carla said, her voice calm but serious. "We need to start digging into the family's background. There's a reason those men took them, and we need to figure out why." They both sat down at a table in the squad room. Luke brought out the photo of Tommy's shirt and placed it on the table. The bloodstains were still visible, but the message was clear. Someone wanted help. Carla examined the photo closely, her brow furrowing. "This is no ordinary kidnapping. Whoever is behind this knew exactly what they were doing. But why leave a message in blood?" "Tommy mentioned his father," Luke said. "He said they were yelling about his dad while taking his family. Something about money owed. It's all a bit fuzzy, but he was terrified when he said it." Carla nodded, scribbling notes on a pad. "This is starting to make sense. We need to find out more about his dad. If he owes money to someone dangerous, this could be revenge or worse, ransom. His name is Marcus Carter," Luke added. "The boy said his father used to deal with bad people, but he left that life a long time ago. Apparently, his testimony helped put someone in prison." Carla looked up from her notes, her eyes narrowing. "That's a solid lead. A whistleblower who went against dangerous people? It's no surprise they're coming after his family. I bet the people he helped put away want revenge." Luke's mind spun. He didn't know Marcus Carter personally, but the name was starting to ring a bell. He'd heard about whistleblowers like him, people who exposed criminal activity and paid the price. If Marcus had been involved in something as dangerous as that, it made sense that his family could be targeted now. "Let's pull up everything we can on Marcus Carter," Carla said. "I want to know who he was dealing with, who he hurt, and who might want to come after him. In the meantime, you should talk to Tommy again. Get as much information out of him as possible." With Carla taking charge of the investigation, Luke went back to check on Tommy. The boy was sitting in the same spot, his eyes glued to the floor. He looked up as Luke entered the room but didn't say anything. His silence was heavy with the weight of everything he'd just been through. "Hey, Tommy," Luke said softly, sitting down next to him. "I know this is hard, but I need to ask you some more questions. Can you tell me anything else about the men who took your mom and sister?" Tommy hesitated, his fingers nervously playing with the water bottle in his hands. After a long pause, he spoke in a soft, trembling voice. They were yelling about my dad. I don't know why, but they said he owed them something. And then one of them said, "We'll make him pay." Do you remember anything else about them? Anything at all? Luke asked gently. Tommy shook his head, but then his eyes widened slightly. "One of them had a tattoo," he whispered. "A snake on his hand. I remember it because it was scary. A tattoo." Luke's heart skipped a beat. A snake tattoo could be a clue. There were gangs that used tattoos to mark their members, and if these men were part of something like that, it could lead to bigger criminals. It was a lead, and Luke wasn't going to let it slip away. "That's good, Tommy," Luke said with a reassuring smile. "You're helping us a lot. I promise we'll get your family back." As Luke left the room, he couldn't help but feel the weight of the responsibility on his shoulders. This wasn't just about a child being scared and alone. This was about something much larger. Whoever had taken Tommy's family had ties to people who could hurt a lot of others. Back in the squad room, Carla had gathered the information on Marcus Carter. He was a former businessman who had turned whistleblower after uncovering a massive fraud scheme. His testimony had led to the conviction of several criminals, one of whom was Brandon Fox, a man known for his violent tendencies and connections to organized crime. "Brandon Fox," Carla said as she handed Luke a file. "This is the man who could be behind the kidnapping. He was sent to prison because of Marcus's testimony, and he's been linked to several violent crimes since his release." "This is it," Luke said, his voice tense. "Brandon Fox and his crew are the ones behind this, but what do they want with Marcus's family?" Carla leaned back in her chair, a serious look on her face. "They want revenge, and they're not going to stop until they get it." Luke clenched his fists. He couldn't shake the image of Tommy sitting in that small room, so alone and frightened. The boy had already been through so much, and now it was up to him and his team to bring his family home. "We need to move fast," Luke said. "The longer we wait, the more dangerous this gets." As the investigation began to take shape, one thing became clear. This wasn't just another missing person case. This was a fight against a network of criminals who wouldn't hesitate to hurt anyone who got in their way. And Luke wasn't about to let that happen. The clock was ticking and he had a promise to keep. The investigation was moving faster now, but with every minute that passed, the pressure was mounting. Officer Luke Henson couldn't shake the image of Tommy's face, the small boy who had already seen too much. He had promised to bring the kid's family back, but now the clock was ticking faster than ever. The kidnappers, linked to the dangerous Brandon Fox, were out there, and it was up to Luke and his team to track them down before it was too late. Carla Green, the lead detective, had gathered all the information they had on Fox and his criminal network. Fox wasn't just some petty criminal. He was part of a well-organized group that specialized in extortion, kidnapping, and smuggling. His crew was ruthless, and they weren't going to stop until they got what they wanted. And right now they wanted revenge on Marcus Carter, who had helped put Fox behind bars. "We've got to catch them before they disappear," Carla said, looking at the map of known safe houses and hideouts that the team had tracked. "Fox has been laying low for a while, but with this kidnapping we've made him nervous. He's going to try to move his family again. We just need to figure out where." Luke nodded. "We've got a few leads to work with." Tommy's description of the tattoo, one of the kidnappers had a snake tattoo, could help us identify some of the crew members. Maybe someone who's been with Fox for a while. We need to check his associates, anyone he's worked with recently. If we find someone with that tattoo, we can get closer, Carla said, tapping her fingers on the table. We'll also need to pull up everything we can on Fox's history. Anyone from his past could help us connect the dots. The team worked quickly. dividing into smaller groups to investigate different avenues. Some were checking on Fox's known associates. Others were tracing his movements, while a few looked into the possibility of ransom demands. But as the hours went by, Luke couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out for Marcus Carter's family. It was mid-afternoon when Carla called Luke into her office. She was staring at a list of addresses on her computer screen, looking frustrated. "We've got a problem," she said, turning to him. "One of Fox's men, a guy named Vince, has been spotted at a local warehouse on the east side. It's one of the addresses we had flagged earlier." "Vince, that's the guy with the snake tattoo," Luke said, his voice tight with anticipation. "It's gotta be them. They're hiding there. It looks like they've been moving goods through that warehouse for a while. It's not just a place to store stuff, it's a safe house," Carla added. "We need to move fast. If we're lucky, we'll catch them before they move again." Luke's pulse quickened. This was the break they had been waiting for. He gathered the team quickly and made the call to surround the warehouse. It was an old, abandoned building on the edge of town, surrounded by high fences and with no windows in sight. The perfect hiding spot. But Luke knew this was a risky move. Fox was clever and he wouldn't hesitate to make a run for it if he knew the cops were closing in. The team parked a few blocks away, blending in with the shadows of nearby alleys. Luke could feel the tension in the air as he checked his weapon one last time. He glanced at Carla, who was giving him a determined look. "This is it. We get in. We get them and we get out." As they moved toward the warehouse, Luke's mind raced. Every second felt like an eternity. The sound of footsteps echoed in the narrow alleyways as the officers split up, covering all the exits. Luke and Carla approached the front of the warehouse, their steps deliberate and quiet. The night was still, but they could feel the weight of what was about to happen. The door to the warehouse creaked open as Luke turned the handle, signaling Carla to stay close. They stepped inside, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The place was filled with old crates, boxes stacked high, and the faint smell of mold in the air. The silence was broken only by the sound of their boots on the concrete floor. "Clear so far," Carla whispered into her radio. "Let's move deeper." Luke nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. They were getting closer. He could feel it. They moved further into the building, scanning the dark corners for any sign of movement. Then, Luke heard it. A faint sound, like someone dragging something heavy. He signaled for Carla to follow as they moved toward the noise. The sound grew louder, echoing in the vast empty space. When they reached the back of the warehouse, they saw it. Drag marks leading to a small office tucked in the corner. Luke's heart skipped a beat. This was it. This was where the kidnappers had been hiding. "We've got something," Luke muttered into his radio. "Carla, stay back. I'll check it out." He pushed the door open slowly, his flashlight flicking across the room. Inside, he saw a chair in the middle of the room, ropes hanging loosely from its arms. Bloodstains dotted the floor, and a torn piece of pink fabric lay discarded on the ground. Luke's stomach turned. This was where they'd been holding Marcus Carter's family. "Vince!" Luke shouted, his voice cutting through the silence. "Come out now." The room remained still. Luke's hand tightened around his weapon, his eyes scanning the dark corners. Then he heard a shuffle from behind a stack of crates. Vince appeared, stepping out with a gun in his hand. "Drop the weapon," Luke shouted, his finger on the trigger. But Vince didn't listen. Instead, he turned and sprinted for the back door. "No," Luke shouted, chasing after him. "Don't let him get away." The chase was on. Vince darted through the warehouse, knocking over boxes and crates as he ran. Luke was close behind, but Vince had the advantage of knowing the layout. He dashed toward the back of the building, where the exit was just a few steps away. Luke pushed himself harder, his lungs burning as he closed the distance. He wasn't going to lose him, not now. With a final sprint, Luke tackled Vince to the ground, pinning him down before he could reach the door. "You're not getting away," Luke said, his voice low and determined. "Tell me where they are." Vince struggled beneath him, his breath coming in shallow gasps. "You won't find them," he sneered. "Fox is already gone. You're too late." Luke's heart sank. They had to move fast, but he wasn't going to give up. Not now. Not when they were this close. Where did they go? Luke demanded. Where's Fox? Vince smirked. You'll never catch him. He's already moved them. You're chasing ghosts. Luke's grip tightened, but before he could respond, Carla entered the room, her gun drawn. We got him, she said, her voice calm. He's not going anywhere. As the officers closed in to take Vince into custody, Luke's mind raced. He wasn't sure if Vince was telling the truth, but one thing was certain. This was far from over. The pursuit of the kidnappers had only just begun, and Luke wasn't going to stop until Tommy's family was safe. The sun had barely begun to rise, casting long shadows across the city as Officer Luke Henson stood outside the old warehouse. The past few hours had been a blur. He could still hear Vince's taunting words echoing in his mind. You're chasing ghosts, Vince had said. And for a moment, Luke wasn't sure if he was right. They had been following leads, but nothing had been concrete. Every step felt like they were getting further from finding Marcus Carter's family. But Luke wasn't about to give up. Not now. We've got to find them, Luke muttered to himself, the determination in his voice stronger than ever. He had made a promise to Tommy, the small boy who had put his trust in him, and he couldn't fail him now. Luke turned to Carla, who was already examining the notes from their last investigation. We have to hit him now, Carla. Fox won't be waiting much longer. We need to find him before he disappears for good. Carla nodded, her face set with resolve. I know. The good news is, we know Fox has been using the docks for his operations. The bad news is he knows we're coming. We have to be smart about this. We can't just storm in without backup. If this is going to work, we need to make sure we're not walking into a trap. Luke agreed, his mind racing. We can't afford to waste time, Carla. Every second counts. The team had gathered quickly, preparing for the final confrontation. Luke and Carla's plan was simple. Get to the docks before Fox had a chance to move his family again. It was a high-risk operation, but there was no other choice. They couldn't let Marcus's family disappear again. We're going to need a small team, Luke said, looking over the officers that had gathered. We'll split up. Carla, you'll take the left side of the warehouse. I'll go right. We need to secure every exit. No one gets away. Understood, Carla replied, her voice steady. We'll move fast and keep it quiet. Luke glanced at the officers, checking their equipment one last time. Remember, this is about bringing them home safely. No unnecessary risks. Let's get them. The group made their way to the docks, the early morning mist hanging heavy in the air. The sound of distant waves crashing against the pier was the only noise breaking the silence. Luke's heart pounded in his chest as they approached the warehouse where they believed Fox was hiding. The building loomed in front of them, dark and ominous. It was quiet, too quiet. This doesn't feel right, Carla said, her voice low. We've got to move cautiously. We don't know what we're walking into. Stay close, Luke replied. We stick to the plan. No one gets in our way. They moved closer, their footsteps muffled by the soft ground. The warehouse doors were closed, but Luke could see a faint light coming from under the crack at the bottom. It was now or never. On my signal, Luke said, signaling the team to stop. Get ready. He signaled Carla, and they both slowly approached the doors. With a swift motion, Luke kicked the door open and the team flooded into the warehouse. The space was dark and filled with the smell of old wood and rust. Their flashlights scanned the area, but there was no sign of Fox or the family. Clear, Luke called out, his voice steady. Check the back. As they moved deeper into the warehouse, the air seemed to grow heavier. Every corner felt like it could be hiding something. And then, just as they reached the back of the warehouse, they heard it. A faint sound like the shuffle of feet. Luke raised his hand, signaling for the team to stop. Someone's here, he whispered. They moved forward cautiously, the tension thick in the air. Luke's eyes scanned the dark corners of the warehouse, every second feeling like an eternity. Then, through the shadows, he saw him, Brandon Fox, standing by a small door at the far end of the room holding a gun. Fox, Luke shouted, his voice firm. It's over. Put the gun down, now. Fox smirked, his eyes cold and calculating. You think you've won? You're too late, they're already gone. Luke's heart dropped. What do you mean? Where are they? Fox laughed, a cruel, hollow sound. They're long gone. I never intended to let them go, but I'm sure you'll figure that out soon enough. Not if I have anything to say about it, Luke said, his voice low but steady. He raised his gun, ready to make a move. This ends now, Fox. Suddenly, Fox lunged forward, grabbing a young girl from behind a stack of crates. Luke's heart skipped a beat. It was Emily, the girl they had been searching for. She was terrified, her eyes wide with fear, but Luke couldn't let her be used as a shield. Don't move, Luke shouted, his voice firm. Let her go, Fox. Fox smirked, tightening his grip on Emily. You're going to have to make me. Luke's hand was steady on his gun. He knew this was a risk, but it was the only way. He couldn't let Emily be hurt. With one quick motion, he fired, hitting the gun out of Fox's hand. Fox stumbled backward, cursing under his breath. Go, Luke shouted to the team. Get her out of here. The officers rushed to Emily's side, taking her into protective custody. Luke moved quickly, closing in on Fox. But Fox wasn't done yet. With a quick motion, he pulled a knife from his belt and lunged toward Luke, aiming for his chest. But Luke was faster. He sidestepped, grabbing Fox's arm and twisting it behind his back, forcing him to the ground. Within seconds, the team had him restrained, cuffs clicking into place. You're done, Luke said, his voice cold. You won't hurt anyone again. As Fox was led out of the warehouse in cuffs, Luke couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story than he had realized. Fox wasn't just a criminal. He was part of something bigger. But for now, they had won. Emily and her family were safe. Luke stood by the door, watching the early morning light break through the darkness. It was over. But deep down, he knew this wasn't the end. The real fight was just beginning.